indirectly supporting you. But if they have had a traumatic experience with their own birth or pregnancy, not to tell you.
Oh.
Right? So
I like that.
Yeah. So we're like, it's human nature. We talk about the bad stuff. We don't really see a lot of positive stuff being shared. That's how we are.
Yeah.
That's how the world is. But asking like your mum, when she's like, oh, well, I was in labour with you for 15 hours and you did this. And you,
oh, dear.
Or like, you know, like we always hear stories. Like,
yeah.
Everyone shares their birth story with you and there's always some drama in it.
Yeah.
And that's so fine. Ask them to do it after your birth, because one of the things that sticks in people's heads when I talk to women is, well, my auntie said this and my best friend, this happened to her. Is it going to happen to me? And I'm like, it shouldn't even be in your head. These negative thoughts, we don't need to plant seeds of doubt. So you're asking your friends and family to like, just really buffer what they're sharing with you, because you're not going to talk about, you know, planes falling out the sky to your friend who's about to board a plane. Right?
So we try to kind of...
all these tests.
I retired. I mean, obviously, but, you know, thankfully,
All right. Nikki Oliver, a.k.a. the Fit Midwife, is with me in the studio. You've been dubbed so many things. The UAE's go-to midwife, the Fit Midwife. Tell me more about these nicknames. I'm actually interested.
You know, it's nice to have such nice nicknames. I've been here for 8 years and I started the Fit Midwife as a kind of an outlet, because what I found throughout my midwifery career is that women just weren't getting enough information.
Yeah.
And when I moved over here, I think the difference between public and private healthcare, I wasn't able to kind of express myself as a midwife as easily. So I started the Fit Midwife to just kind of have a platform.
Okay.
For women to come to if they wanted to. And I could just give them the bare facts. There's no bias. There's no benefit in it for me as a practitioner. It was just, this is what we know. And they can take that and go with it.
Yeah.
So it was almost like a podium sometimes for ranting.
Okay.
About things that frustrated me as a midwife, you know?
Yeah.
Or as a woman.
Yeah.
And kind of, it just kind of grew from there, really. And it's still wild to me.
I love that.
People are so interested.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And I think we miss that, you know, not having a hidden agenda in the information that you're receiving. I just want it, you know, I want the facts. I just want it as is.
Yeah.
With nothing hidden.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you get into all of this? What made you think, okay, I want to become a midwife?
I don't really know. I've always kind of been interested in it.
Okay.
And if you ask my mom, she told me when I was like 5 years old, I made like a book, and I cut some pictures out of a magazine, and I wrote, I want to work in the place where babies are born. And I think I misspelled babies, and you know, it wasn't the greatest piece of work I've ever done.
Yeah.
But so she's like, I've always kind of been that way inclined. I think it was always going to be something healthcare related. But I didn't actually do my midwifery degree till I was 25. So I was considered a mature student.
Okay.
But I just wasn't mature in myself. And to take on such a degree, nursing, midwifery, medicine, and to be straight in the hospitals as your sort of learning placements.
Yeah.
It was when I was about 25 that I was like, right now, I feel like I'm emotionally a bit more mature.
Okay.
And I was ready to go into it.
Okay.
What I like about it most is that it's actually, midwife means with woman. So people think like, it's so lovely, you get to cuddle babies. And I'm like, this is not what I do. It's a really nice part of it when it happens.
Yeah.
But it's not what we do. It's about kind of empowering women, educating women, and helping them. So that's always been something I'm passionate about.
I love it. I love that it's been your calling ever since you were 5. I think that's fantastic. A lot of people don't know what they want to do with their life in their 30s. So like you always knew. That's great.
I did.
Okay, so in your opinion, So before we get into that, that was one of the questions that I had for you before the show. What's the difference between a midwife and a gynecologist? Like, I think I was telling you the first time I ever met a midwife, I think I was 22, and it was when my sister-in-law was giving birth, and she came in and she took over, and I was like, what's happening? Like, where's the doctor? Like, what's going on? So, yeah.
No, it's a good question because it's still a relatively new term. Like in the UAE, some countries don't have midwives at all.
Yeah.
And some are more heavily weighted with midwives. It just depends where you are in the world.
Right.
So a midwife is effectively, we're an expert in normal birth.
Okay.
We are trained to assist women, to support them, to educate them through their pregnancy, their labour and birth, and then in the postpartum period. We also have very skilled, highly trained sort of critical care midwives. So even though a birth may not be deemed uncomplicated or low risk, we have midwives that specialise in providing like that same quality of care and information and support in a high risk situation.
Wow. Okay.
And the difference between a midwife and an OBGYN is obviously an OBGYN is a doctor. And OBGYNs are there to put out fires. That's what they're brilliant at. So they are good when you have emergencies, when you need life-saving interventions. They're the people you want around, and they do such good jobs. But we know that predominantly birth, it's not an illness. Like, pregnancy is not an illness. Birth isn't a bad thing. So midwives are the ones who are actually the best people to support women through that.
Okay.
And all the evidence nicely backs us up. We have better outcomes, less intervention, more positive experiences. So, I mean, there is a difference between us, obviously, but the ideal birth has a multidisciplinary team at the end of the day.
Okay.
Whether that's at home, in some countries they have home birth, whether it's in a birth centre or in a hospital, everybody should be on the same page because we're looking after the same person.
Exactly.
Or people.
Yeah, the goal is the same.
Yeah,
I mean, everyone
absolutely.
has that shared goal. Okay, so we're going to get into the technicalities of things. So what are some of the do's and don'ts that women should keep in mind during a pregnancy to ensure that smooth birth, the least complications during childbirth?
Yeah, so obviously maintaining a kind of healthy lifestyle. We should be doing that all the time. And sometimes we're good at it, sometimes we're not so good at it, and that's just life.
Yeah.
During pregnancy, there are so many like simple little things that you can do. So maintain like you taking your vitamins. Keep taking those vitamins. It's hard to remember. Set an alarm on your phone. Keep moving. Whether that is walking, swimming, the gym, you know, whatever you do, whatever gives you joy, activity-wise, keep doing that. Pregnancy is about adapting what you do around your pregnancy, not stopping what you do because you're pregnant.
Right.
And we know that exercise has so many benefits, and it doesn't have to look like you see on Instagram where there's women picking up weights in the gym with a big baby bump. If that's not your jam, that's fine. If it's just you going for a walk for 45 minutes, even if nowadays that is in the mall, because it's really hot.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. They're all, that's movement, that's steps.
Yeah.
And also I would always recommend people, one of the best ways to serve their body and like their pregnancy is to get antenatal education classes.
Oh, nice.
Because what we're doing is not only we're helping you prepare emotionally, good antenatal education classes help you prepare physically. So we give you exercises, positions, things that optimize baby's position or optimize your pelvic floor. But also what it gives you is like a really good like bank of knowledge, so that when you go to talk to your OB/GYN and they say something, you can be like, oh, hang on, I learned about this.
Yeah.
Right, I need to ask this, this and this. Or you go away and have a chat with whoever ran your antenatal classes and they give you something to bring back to talk to the doctor with.
Right.
But when you know what's going to happen, what's likely to happen and what's not likely to happen, then you feel more calm with that journey ahead.
Of course.
Because if I put you on a plane and just went, okay, see you, bye-bye, you'd be like, oh, hang on, wait, what do I need to pack? What do I need to bring? Where am I going? When will I come back? Whereas if I tell you every step of a journey as best I can, you're going to feel more prepared.
Of course, you feel at ease. I mean, the knowledge helps you sort of foresee what's to come.
Absolutely. And without knowledge, like the right knowledge, you can't make an informed decision about anything.
Absolutely.
So you're never, ever going to have peace of mind if you're making important decisions if you only learned about it 2 minutes ago.
Right. Absolutely. So it's interesting that you mentioned, so exercise and nutrition obviously are key during the pregnancy. What about work? Because I know that it's one of those things that we have to deal with. I mean, until your maternity leave, you're going to be working. Yeah. You're going to be under stress. How can women manage that? And how important is it to manage stress during a pregnancy? Because how can it affect the baby?
We know that prolonged stress can directly affect a baby. It can. One of the common links is a slightly heightened risk of premature labour, for example. But when we think about work, you're basically in a really long interview process for the biggest job of your life when you're pregnant,
right?
Because being a parent is a job. It's just a not paid one with no holidays, but it's a job. And when we know that the way that the working culture nowadays, it's not set up for women who are either pregnant or postpartum. It's still not. We're still really not great at that generally, like globally. We're not doing great.
Yes.
So it's hard, but you really have to kind of put yourself and your baby first. Whether that is having a meeting, I know working hours can be quite long. So whether it's having a meeting and saying to your boss, look, I'm really, really struggling. How about I do this day and this day from home? Or, just it's having that discussion of,
right,
what can we do? Like, how can we meet in the middle? Because your employers will always get the best out of you.
Oh, yeah.
If they give you that sort of room to work within your means at that time, especially during pregnancy. We know that the first trimester, you may have nausea, vomiting. You might not be able to be more than 2 feet from the bathroom.
Absolutely.
And that's difficult. And we know in the third trimester that kind of, some of that nausea can come back, but fatigue, it's tiring growing a human body.
Yeah.
So kind of thinking, how do we work around these things and still maintain that output that you need to give for work, and also requesting help when you're at work. So if you have an overwhelming amount of tasks or presentations or anything like that, just saying, is there anyone who can help me with one or two of these? And it's really hard. We're not good at asking for help generally as women. We just kind of get on with it.
Yeah.
But stress is not going to, if you're eating well, you're moving, you're educating yourself, you're doing everything right, but you have overwhelming stress at work.
Absolutely.
It's going to negate what you're doing.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. I love that you mentioned that we find it difficult to ask for help because we've sort of been conditioned to prove that we are capable of doing everything and anything without any help. And it defeats the purpose because everyone needs help at a certain point in life. Even men. I mean, it has nothing to do with us being women, So, okay, you mentioned nausea, and that's why I want to go back to that. Can the pregnancy aversions and these the pickiness when it comes to food, can they be serious? Can they turn into something serious? And how can women control them?
It's unlikely to turn into something serious in that if you have most pregnant women have an aversion to one or two things. It's very rare to have an aversion to all food.
Right.
Some women who have extreme nausea and vomiting called hyperemesis, that's a very serious condition. Okay. And it's not just morning sickness. It is morning, noon, night sickness. They cannot keep anything down. That can seriously affect both mum and the pregnancy and the baby. But general food aversions, usually they just come and go over a few weeks. Sometimes after the first trimester's passed, you know, there's no more food aversions. Sometimes in the early few weeks, you'll, you know, I hear mums say to me, oh, I tried to have my coffee this morning and I couldn't even smell it.
Wow.
And that might stay that way for the rest of pregnancy. I know people that haven't eaten things since the first 12 weeks of their pregnancy because they just have that memory of it making them feel so nauseous.
Yes, I did hear that some of these aversions actually continue after childbirth. Like some
women
women
can just put you off.
Yeah, they're put off by that certain food or drink. Interesting. So how do you deal with the severe cases then? Like what if like a woman has the, you know, severe aversions to all foods, or like cannot keep food down, has severe morning night sickness? Because I had a friend that was like that, and I think her doctor, you know, put her on some sort of protocol. But like, how do you deal with that?
It's very difficult to manage, and there's a lot of research about it going on now, and we are making like progress. The research is really, really great, and it seems like we're getting closer to figuring out who is more predisposed to suffer with that.
Interesting.
But it really is something that is medically managed for the most part. So if you cannot stomach any food, water, you're most likely going to have to be admitted into the hospital because we would have to hydrate these women with an IV to keep their electrolyte balances, because our electrolyte balances are so important for organ function in general. So it's about maintaining all of that to keep the organs healthy, not just to keep mum fed, to keep baby fed. It's about like fundamentally like the building blocks of our body.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, and then how can like the family or like partners support women during their pregnancy journey? Like what kind of support can your surroundings offer you during that journey?
So one of the best things that partners or family members can do is if they're going to be the birth partner. So it's not always dad. Sometimes it's your mum. Sometimes it's your sister, your best friend, you know, whoever you're comfortable with. But they need to be coming to antenatal education classes with you, right? So what you're learning, they learn. No, like, oh, this isn't for dad. It's all for dad, or it's all for your birth partner. So knowing that you have that one constant person who's kind of there with you, absorbing the information, going to appointments. It's not just on you to listen to everything and to think of the questions. So that's something that I say quite a lot. Like, even if you have to write questions down and ask next time. Just helping out if you're suffering from fatigue, nausea and vomiting, just helping out. Like, can I walk the dog? Shall I get you an InstaShop and get it delivered to your house? You know, just really simple things like that. But when you're so exhausted, you can't move off the sofa. Those things they'll change your day, they'll change your week. And one thing I think is super important with family and friends is that you need to ask them, and this isn't like, it's indirectly supporting you, but if they have had a traumatic experience with their own birth or pregnancy, not to tell you. Right? So
I like that.
Yeah. So we're like, it's human nature. We talk about the bad stuff. We don't really see a lot of positive stuff being shared. That's how we are. That's how the world is. But asking like your mum when she's like, oh, well, I was in labour with you for 15 hours and you did this. And or like, you know, like we always hear stories. Like everyone shares their birth story with you and there's always some drama in it. And that's so fine. Ask them to do it after your birth, because one of the things that sticks in people's heads when I talk to women is, well, my auntie said this and my best friend, this happened to her. Is it going to happen to me? And I'm like, it shouldn't even be in your head. These negative thoughts, we don't need to plant seeds of doubt. So you're asking your friends and family to like, just really buffer what they're sharing with you, because you're not going to talk about, you know, planes falling out the sky to your friend who's about to board a plane. Right?
Exactly.
So why are you going to do that in any other situation?
I like that. I really like that. I think we tend to forget that, you know, like pregnant women, I mean, are already worrying enough. So we don't need to add to that. Like, we don't need to talk about what happened to who, you know. It's just, it's something that we can cut out. So the support and the do's and don'ts and I mean, everything that you've mentioned, how can that actually factor into the delivery aspect of that end goal?
Yeah.
How does that help can it actually help with having a smoother delivery?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're keeping on top of your nutrition, for example, one of the best things we do when we keep on top of our nutrition is keep our iron levels high. And that's important for birth, right? So if we have low iron levels, most pregnant women will have a touch of anemia anyway.
Okay.
We have 50% more circulating volume, so we have lower iron levels. But if you're kind of maintaining that through your diet, then what you're doing is when we have good iron levels, we're reducing our risk of something like a postpartum hemorrhage.
Okay.
So it's all these, because our muscles need iron. They need the heme, the stuff that carries the oxygen, because your uterus is a muscle. So it's kind of all these little things that people aren't told about, but all of these things are connected. When we're exercising and keeping mobile, what we're doing is we're keeping our mind-muscle connection going with our body, especially as our body changes, our center of gravity moves out as our bump grows.
Right.
And if we're learning how we move around that, then during labor or birth, you can get into the position that you feel most comfortable. And you know you can because you've been active throughout your pregnancy. We also know that the more sedentary a lifestyle that we have, especially during pregnancy, it encourages baby to be in that back-to-back position. So instead of the baby's back being sort of at the front or on the side, it's kind of along the back of your back. So spine to spine sort of thing. And we want baby to be in an optimal position. Sometimes they're not. They do what they want, babies.
Oh, yeah.
They're the boss, right? It's got nothing to do with the rest of us. It's their world. We all just live in it. But it's I think for when we want a really positive experience with our birth, no matter how we give birth, it's all about doing what you feel you can within your power.
Right.
So if you're doing all these things, you're going to go into birth thinking, okay,
I can
I've
do
got
this.
I've done everything I can possibly do. And I know my birth partner or whoever it is, I know they're on the same wavelength as me. I've taught them what to do when I react like this. They've got a copy of my birth plan. They know everything. You're going in, you feel supported. So all of these things that you do in pregnancy, and especially with the reducing the sort of negative noise around birth and pregnancy and all the scary stories, what you're doing is you're just creating yourself like a little bubble. And you only let the good stuff in, and that's what you go into the labor with.
Yeah, absolutely.